UFC Superfan here. We are doing part 2 of the UFC Fan Expo survival guide and preparation tip list, whatever you want to call it. The first 5 tips were all things that you could do before the Fan Expo. Things like dressing appropriately, getting your snacks ready, making sure your phone and your camera are fully charged. These next 5 tips will be things that you do while you're there, and this is from my experience, so take it with a grain of salt. Use it. Hopefully you guys have a great time, and let's get to it. Tip number 5. Arrive early and stay as late as possible. On Saturday the doors open at 10 o'clock. For VIPs they open at 9 o'clock. Either way, doesn't matter what ticket you bought, I would advise getting there extra early. Don't call me crazy, but I would say shoot for getting there between 7 and 8 o'clock. You want to beat or get in front of a lot of the crowds and a lot of the just masses of people, and a lot of times when you do that, you arrive early, you get your first pick of who you want to meet. So looking at last year's guide, or last year's autograph schedule, you see 9 to 10, those are for the VIPs, but the fighter signing at 10 o'clock, that's who you'll have your first pick of. So for example, if you want to meet Cain Velasquez, you better get there early because his line's going to be pretty long compared to, let's say, Martin Kampmann, who's a little bit less well known. The other thing I wanted to mention is that it does end at 5 o'clock on the first day. A lot of people leave very, very early, so people will take off 2 or 3 o'clock, and you can really tell that the crowds start to die down. Lines get really, really short between 4 and 5 o'clock, and I've found that the best time to get autographs and the shortest lines are usually later in the afternoon, because people get tired, wives and girlfriends, they get cranky, kids get tired, so make sure to stay at the end. I can remember earlier on in the day, a line for Phil Davis, typically about, I'd say, half an hour, 40 minutes or so. At the end of the day, he was still signing autographs, still talking to fans. I think the line was about 5 minutes long. So, make sure you guys stay late, utilize your time wisely. You guys paid some good money for the tickets to the expo. So, arrive early, stay late as possible. Tip number 4, game plan. Game plan, game plan, game plan. This is where you are figuring out your schedule for the day, which fighters you're going to be meeting, which lines you're going to be waiting for. Very important to read the program. The program has everything that you'll need to make sure your day is organized. So while you are waiting in the beginning or in the lines, make sure you're going through it, kind of circling out who you're going to be talking to. Can't stress this enough also, make sure to go both days. One day is just physically not enough to fully experience the UFC Fan Expo. In 2010, I only went to the first day, and it was just due to timing and working things out with my wife, and I wish I went both days, and it killed me a little bit that I didn't get to go both days. So make sure to go both days. The other thing I would mention is make sure to pick your spots. So if you look at last year's program, just to give you an idea, they give you a pretty impressive list of some of the fighters that are going to be there. If you look, you have Chuck Liddell, John Jones, Ronda Rousey, I saw Anderson Silva somewhere here, the Axe Murderer, Leo Machida, BJ Penn, Cain Velasquez. So in a perfect world, you'll be able to meet everyone. In real life, that's just not the case. And it was funny, I'd overheard a conversation in back of me, and the guy was saying, yeah, you know, this morning I'm going to meet Ronda Rousey, Cain Velasquez, John Jones, then in the afternoon I'm going to hit up Anderson Silva, Chuck Liddell, Anthony Pettis, and then I'm going to go to the fights afterwards. That's great, but it's just not possible. So what you have to do is pick your spots. So, for example, if you know, for example, GSP is signing in the morning, and last year he was signing at, let's see, so he signed, I think he was signing at 10, if I can find it here. Well, anyways, I can't find it, but I remember last year GSP was signing at 10 o'clock, and if it's on your goal to meet GSP, then that better be the first line you go into. Noting that if you do line up for that line, that means you're going to miss out on Ronda Rousey, for example, or BJ Penn. So just keep in mind that for the bigger name fighters, you're going to be in line for at least 2 hours or so, including waiting, and when they get there, just waiting for people to kind of go through and get their autographs. On the flip side, a lot of people are waiting in these long lines for the big name fighters. That means some of the mid-tier fighters like Dominic Cruz, Donald Cerrone, Gilbert Melendez, Kung Lee, their lines are shorter, so it's a give and take. Do you want to meet one big name fighter in the morning, or do you want to meet 6 mid-tier fighters? So, you know, use your time accordingly. The other thing I wanted to mention is that, and again, this is last year's. I haven't seen this year's yet, so I'm anxious to see what it looks like. They have main event or main stage events where they have guest speakers like Dana White, Chael Sonnen. Last year, I believe they inducted Forrest Griffin and Stephen Bonner into the UFC Hall of Fame. So, you know, while you're waiting, you can listen to that, or if you want to take a break and get out of the lines completely, you know, definitely do that. So, anyways, that's tip number 4. Make sure you guys game plan, read the program. Keep it reasonable. You're not going to be able to meet everyone here on this list, so pick your spots, guys. Tip number 3. As you can see here, I have a stack of UFC and MMA related t-shirts. For those of you who love wearing your favorite fighters' walkout shirts, the Fan Expo is the place to get them. Now, make sure you guys know, and this is the same for any expo, in that on the second day, probably with a couple hours to go in the afternoon, booths start to discount their t-shirts. And that's the best time to buy it. So, this shirt right here, Dan Henderson Clinch Gear, this was his walkout shirt against, I think against Rashad Evans. I got this for $10. Cannot beat that, and I think regular price would have probably been $20 or $30. BJ Penn, huge on t-shirts. I think that's probably where he makes most of his money. His mom runs the stand, and on the second day, she's pretty cool about giving discounts as well. I have a Kung Lee shirt, same thing. A couple Head Rush t-shirts. Second day, bottom. Make sure you guys wait. Or you guys can even bargain. You guys can probably get some discounts as well if you guys buy a couple or multiple t-shirts. So make sure you just keep that in mind as you guys are walking the floor. The other tip I wanted to mention was they give out a lot of free stuff. Just like any health expo, or yeah, just like any health expo, there's a lot of supplements that these companies are giving out. I don't know how safe it is to be taking some of this stuff, but if you you know, gym people are out there, they give out a lot of free stuff. Make sure you pick up and just keep walking by and just taking. So it kind of makes up for the cost of admission. So buy your t-shirts on the second day, negotiate, get them discounted, save your money, spend it on other stuff. All right. Tip number 2. This is probably this should be number 1, but this is number 2. My biggest tip for people is keeping your cool. The Fan Expo, the UFC, MMA in general has gotten more and more popular, which means that there's more and more people. That's great for business. Hopefully Dana White's raking it in and making a lot of money, but that means at these events the lines are ridiculous. I noticed last year it's just more and more people, and it's just crazy. So what I wanted to share with you guys is make sure you just keep your cool. The lines are going to be long. You have to understand that going into this, and if you understand that with that expectation, you guys are going to have a better time. And also making sure to have realistic expectations, and this is the same for tip number 4, which is the game plan. Pick your spots. Just know that in the morning of Saturday you're not going to meet Ronda Rousey, John Jones, GSP, and 6 other fighters. There's just not enough time, and the lines are just really long. So what I always enjoy is talking to people in line, making friends with them, and you strike up a conversation. You can never know what happens. Also, when you do get into the expo, all the lines are long. You're going to see these people running around. It gets crazy. Just stay cool, get into your line, wait. Don't try to find the shorter line, because believe me, they are all long. So yeah, pick your spots, keep your cool, make friends, understand that there's long lines. But when you do meet the fighters, it's totally worth it. So, alright. Finally, tip number 1 for the UFC Fan Expo, and that is have fun. This is one of the most unique events out there. No other sport puts something like this on. Individual sports teams do put it on, but in no circumstance or event will you get to meet, for example, in NFL, Peyton Manning, Colin Kaepernick, and some other sports stars. Or same thing with baseball. You're not going to be able to meet Derek Jeter. I don't really know who else there is, but the Fan Expo makes that happen, where you can meet all these great fighters. So just to show you a little bit of what I have from over the years, just from meeting fighters. It's one of the best times ever. You can meet so many cool people, and it's definitely worth it. So have fun. Make sure you guys take pictures, meet a lot of fighters, ask them questions, anything else that you guys are thinking. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed it. I will see you at the UFC Fan Expo. It is 2 weeks away. I'm so excited, and I'm ready to get out there. So again, hit me up with questions if you guys have anything. Visit me at theflyingarmbar.com, and UFC Superfan out.